Hey, listener, I have a really special guest today. If you listen to Christian radio at all, I'm sure you've heard of him, Mark Gregston from Parenting Today's Teen and Heartlight Ministries. And as you can tell, he has a heart for teens and reaching them. And so we're going to get into a lot of maybe some complicated questions from some parents and grandparents out there who might be struggling with trying to relate to their teens. So, welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Carol.
Of course. So, can you tell the listener just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of go back to your history to how all this started?
Yeah, if I had to explain a little bit about myself, it's just interesting. I've always been kind of a kid person. And so I do the same thing at age 70, spending time with kids, helping parents, doing anything we can to create resources for parents, helping them. But I live with 60 high school kids. And so I have a experimental place that I get to spend time with those kids, find out what they're thinking, meet with parents, trying to figure out how we get through this stuff, taking the most complicated of situations and trying to find answers and practical examples. And so that's who I am. My wife and I've been married 50 years. We have two kids that are 49 and 45, which is crazy because I don't feel like I'm old enough to have them that old. We have four grandkids who are 25, 20, oh, it's crazy, 13 and 11. And I don't know how these people have so many grandkids. Yeah, I know people that have like 40 grandkids, and I go, you're crazy. Yeah, I mean, you're just absolutely, or your kids are, or I don't know what they're eating, but they need to stop eating that stuff. I mean, how do you keep up? I have a tough time keeping up with four grandkids.
I know, I
And
know. Yeah.
so,
I
anyway,
have four grandkids. My oldest one will be four in January, and my best friend has nine grandchildren.
wow.
And I she keeps them all the time. And two of them are my grandkids because we're best friends. And my daughter married her son. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
like the
Wow.
craziest thing. But it
Yeah.
is, that is, it's a lot. It's a lot of work because you want to be a great grandparent, you know? So,
I think that grandparenting, it's a mulligan. It's an opportunity. It's a do-over.
yeah,
I made a lot of mistakes with my kids.
as
I
we
was
all
so
do.
busy helping everybody else that I kind of ignored my own kids,
Mm.
and that caused some problems. And I'm talking about problems that my daughter cheered at Baylor University and wrestled with an eating disorder. My
Oh,
son started drinking like crazy. Only quit 4 years ago.
oh, wow.
Um, I mean, and I look back and I go, I think it was because I was missing and ignoring part of their life in my pursuit of what I think God was having me do, not really realizing, because I think when I was in my 30s at that time, I wasn't stupid, but I do think I was ignorant.
Mm.
And so now from what I've learned from that, I realize that I'm a part of that. I am a part of what they've struggled through. And our relationship is great now. I mean, we all work together, we do this thing together, and yet you realize the impact that parents have on their kids, and especially when they start asking the questions, well, how could this have happened? What
Mm.
what what went on? What did we do wrong? And I go, well, I can help you with that. I mean, I have personal experience in that stuff. And I've gotten to see thousands of parents and families that are trying to figure it out and try to come to terms with how do we do this in a culture that is so crazy and so
Yes.
permissive. How do we do that? And I think when you get to know the kids and like I have by living with them and seeing different perspectives, and I mean it gives you the opportunity to take the wisdom that you've learned all your life and apply it to the situation and really make scripture come alive, quite honestly, And so
Yeah.
I was Oklahoma Bible quiz champ of 1969.
Oh,
That's
wow.
probably how most people know who I am. And yeah. I'm sure nobody knows that.
Well, so you started this, so you have Heartlight Ministries, and that's what you're talking about, why you live with 60 teenagers.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
started this, how old were you when you started this?
Well, I mean, that was 37 years ago that we started Heartlight, but my wife and I were asked to lead a Young Life Club. Young Life's an organization that reaches out to kids, and I've always been so relationship oriented that that was my always my focus on that's what we want to do with kids. The second week we were doing that, we were both 19. A man walked up to me who was picking up his son and said, "I'm struggling with my son. I don't know what to do." And I said, "Why don't you let him come live with me?" And so Jane and I weren't married yet. Um, we've been dating for 5 years. Our first date was when this Christian band came through Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Led Zeppelin, and so we ended up, saying yes, we'll do it. And I looked at this man and said, "Let him come live with me," and he did for 3 or 4 months, and
So
then
let me
the
ask you,
pandemic.
what made you say, let him come live with me? And how old was this kid?
Kid was just a year and a half younger than I was. And
Wow.
I think it was just a moment either of insanity or maybe I passed out for a second or fainted or I mean, but that's what started it. And I started to see, golly, these kids need help. And it's not, because we always think about a kid who struggles as this incorrigible, indigent kid that belongs in juvenile detention or is on that path, or and I go, that's now all of our kids.
Mm,
I mean, they are struggling in a culture that you and I have said we're glad we don't have to be raised in this culture. Well, our kids
amen.
do, and they need help. And so it's saying, how do we help them get to a better place? And it's not old school anymore. Um,
Mm-mm.
it's not old school. It's different. And we have to look at it differently. And the challenge for all of us, I think, is how do we take the scripture, how do we take the principles, the biblical views that we have, what we've been trained in, what we've learned, all the wisdom we gathered, how do we take that and then take the wisdom from that and apply it to a culture that is so different from ours that it becomes effective and it becomes good news, or it becomes that water that will give a thirsty generation a drink that they'll never thirst again. And I think that's a big challenge. And the whole culture sped up so much. If you hold on to all the old style and everything else, it's going to pass you up fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
We have to change to meet the needs of the teens today
oh,
because
absolutely,
I mean, even my kids, they're 32 and 29. They didn't have even I remember I wouldn't let my daughter on Facebook, and I can't remember how old she was. Maybe she was early high school, and she secretly
yeah.
created a Facebook page that I didn't know anything about and made up a name. And several years later, I started getting these emails to this name, and I'm like, who is this person? She finally fessed up and said, "Oh, I created it secretly." But it was nothing like what the kids have to deal with today. I mean,
No,
nothing like
no,
the social media, how it affects. And I'm so glad that we didn't have to deal with that. I mean, even, kids take pictures and immediately they can post it online. And, you know, gosh, when I think back to how stupid I was as a teenager, gosh, there's no telling what would be out there,
oh, I know, I
And if
know.
somebody captures that, that's there forever.
Yeah, and especially if you're one of those nerds with a Polaroid camera going around taking pictures,
Yeah.
everybody thought you're kind of weird, but I mean, but I think it is. It's different. But this is what I've got to applaud kids for. I mean, I travel a lot, and usually, even though I'm weaning from it, a couple of hundred nights a year,
Mm,
I go into every airport and everybody's on their phone.
yeah,
Everybody. They're either watching movies or playing games, or they're on social media. They're scrolling through, reels. They're looking at Instagram. They're going through TikTok. Everybody. It's not just kids.
that's right.
And it's just not in the US either. You look at what's happening in other countries. It's exactly the same thing. And I think what's happening is that kids are void of relationships because they don't know how to relate any longer.
Yeah.
What they're doing when they're on their phones and trying they're trying to connect, they're trying to fulfill the very thing that God has created them for, and that is to be in relationship with one another. And
Mm,
so it's not happening. And so that's why you see so many kids start doing stupid stuff to get attention because they can.
mm-hmm.
It's like Facebook. Nobody really lives a life like that. People
Mm,
cherry pick all the wonderful things out of their
that's
life,
right.
put it on Facebook, and you get to watch it and you go, oh, neat, their life is so much better than mine is, And I'm looking at it going, why is everybody else on vacation but me? Kind of thing.
That's
People my
right.
age. And I'm going, but that's the tendency. And our kids are doing the same thing. Why
Mm-hmm.
does everybody else have everything and I don't? Why do they love life like that and I don't? Why do they enjoy life better? Why are they so perfect? Why are they so good? And I tell you, they're not. They
Mm-mm.
just know how to present themselves in a way to find their own value. And so it becomes this comparison theology of a core of a child going, I'm never good enough. And so they try, and it doesn't get them anywhere. You can have 1 million followers and not know anybody.
Yeah, that's
Be
right.
connected with so many people and not know a soul or have a relationship. And that's what they've been created for. And so I
Yeah.
think it becomes hopeless. And in that hopelessness, that's where kids do stupid stuff. Suicide rates are up for 15-year-old boys, 15-year-old girls. Suicide rate are the highest they've been in 75 years. I
Wow.
mean, everything. It's just crazy. And at the same time, it's not as bad in some areas. Teen pregnancy has gone down, been cut to half. The abortion rate continues to go down as it has since 1980. Um, Kids are drinking half of what they were drinking alcohol 5 years ago. Now, a lot of vaping, but you don't see kids smoking cigarettes anymore.
No.
Not that many. And the vaping thing, it'll pass. Then it'll be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, so there's a lot of good that's happening, but there's a place where that void is creating a desperateness that they'll do anything for relationships. And that's not the way. Hey, it's almost like we're using one another, fulfill a void in my own life. And I go, that's not good. That's
Mm-mm.
not good. So that's where I feel for kids.
Yeah.
We have created that environment for them.
Yeah.
And my hope is to always be saying relationship, relationship, relationship. That's where parents have got to engage. If our kids aren't going to find it in the current of society, they need to find it in us. And there's a way to go about that makes sure that 5 years from now, when I'm sitting at their wedding or they're choosing a spouse, 10 years from now when they have grandkids, and we all know that grandkids are a reward for not killing your own kid.
Yeah,
My
right.
daughter comes up to me and she goes, it's like you like them more than us. And I go, well, it's because I do. I just do. And so, I mean, but you want that relationship to continue, not just make it through the high school years. You want it to be so in depth and so connected together that it will last the rest of their life and the rest of
Yes. Yes. So I just want to get your feedback on this. So years ago, there was a friend of mine who was having an affair, and I found out about it. And a friend and I went and confronted her about it. And she had a daughter who was a year younger than me, than my daughter, sorry.
yeah,
She was about to enter her senior year of high school. And then she had a son who was a few years older. And so I told her, I said, you need to think about your children before you just throw your marriage away and your family. You need to think about them. And I'll never forget, she said, they don't need me anymore. She said, they, have their own lives. They're grown. They don't need me anymore. And I remember I had just gone through my daughter's senior year. She had just graduated.
yeah,
And I remember how difficult that year was for my daughter trying to find a college. And she didn't get accepted into the one that she had,
yeah, yeah,
for years had planned on going to, and all the things that she had to navigate. And this lady ignored us and went ahead and left. And I saw her daughter fall apart from a distance.
Yeah.
And you know, they ended up they're eventually it all blew up anyway, and they ended up not together. They're not together anymore, her and this other guy. So I look at that, day like 14 years ago and think, what parent out there is thinking, hey, and actually it's one of the reasons that I started this podcast,
Yeah.
because I don't want women to burn it all down.
Yeah.
When they think, hey, the grass is greener, this is going to be better, let me just leave my kids.
Yeah.
They don't need me anymore. And that is a lie from the pit
Yeah.
of hell, that your
Yeah.
kids don't need you when they're 17, 18. I think they need you more
Yeah.
than ever during that time. But I just want to get your input from that.
You know, my son went through a divorce 15 years ago. He had an affair with a gal,
Mm.
and we were shocked. It was 9 months after he got married to another gal that he went to school
Oh
with.
my
And
goodness.
she was a sweetheart. But you know what? I think what I see is that people are motivated by relationships. And we are so desperate for relationships in a society. I mean, I knew every kid on my block when I grew up in New Orleans. I knew every kid in my grade school class. We lived together. Nobody moved. Everybody stayed together. We were connected. We were tight. It's like high school. We go back. I just went to a 50-year reunion, and I go, what is it that connects us?
Mm.
That we're hanging out with people that we haven't seen in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
It was a connection. And I think when people ignore the great need that everybody has for a relationship, then things fall apart. And
Mm.
what I realized that, even with my son, is that his movement, there's a part of me that goes, I don't blame him. He wanted a relationship that was deeper than what he had. And I
Mm.
think he realized maybe I shouldn't have got married. And I think she came to that realization too. And I kept telling him, I don't know whether you guys ought to be getting married or not, kind of thing.
Oh.
It's not my judgment, but I go when I started to think it's the pursuit of relationship, and that's what they want. Our kids will do that. I mean I don't know many kids that won't violate all the values they have to pursue relationships with somebody, to
Mm.
have something. Somebody wrote in, and we have a one of our podcasts is called "A Mustache Mark a Question,"
I
and
saw that. Yeah.
and if
For
people
those
see,
that are listening, you should watch on YouTube and see his mustache. So,
yeah, and so I mean, she wrote and she said, my daughter's in middle school. She's been ignored here. She's, all these different things that went on, and she's just looking for relationships somewhere. And I go, to me, I mean, she's out of control. She's doing every stupid thing you can think of. She's ignoring parents. She's everything. And the tendency that most parents have when that begins to happen is they walk away.
mm.
That is the time that your child needs you the most.
Mm.
I did that with my son. I really thought, at the beginning, it was crazy because I told him, I go, "You're what? You're what?" And he goes, "I'm leaving this gal."
Mm.
I go, "Okay, well, why don't you come back and talk to me when you've gone to her father and told him how much you've messed up this young lady's life?"
Mm.
Okay. I thought that was the manly thing to say. I thought, I'm standing up for marriage. I'm standing up for God. I'm standing up for blah, blah, blah. I wasn't. I abandoned my son. And I always tear up with this a little bit. I abandoned my son when he needed me the most.
Mm.
And I think what happens is that we look to what we don't want to happen and we ignore the pursuit of relationships. And it just shows like this mom who said she didn't have a relationship with her kids. Well, maybe she didn't. And you begin to look at her differently. Maybe she didn't have a relationship with anybody, and we all pursue that. I mean, and I go, well, go get a dog, get a golden retriever. They make wonderful friends, but do something. And I don't want people to get divorced. But when you start to look at the motivation that people have in a lot of their actions, and I think that all behavior is goal oriented, you look at that, what you begin to see is that there's a longing in everybody's heart to be connected. I
Mm,
mean, and I mean, people want that. They want that. And I think that's why the country, the culture is so full of ridicule and criticism and everybody, I mean, people use every kind of social media as or any kind of anything on the internet basically as a megaphone to just gripe about everything
yeah.
rather than thinking how do we engage with one another
Mm,
and love one another and so and my son and I have gotten through that and I had to apologize because I didn't see him for 6 months at the
wow.
time that he needed me the most and he's one that I've always said I came up with the phrase and said Adam, I want you to know this. There's nothing you can do to make me love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make me love you less.
Mm,
Until he told me that, and I went, okay, you just made me love you less because I
mm,
abandoned you. And I go, so that's where I think anybody who's struggling with their kids, don't walk away, walk toward. I mean,
yeah.
that's what Jesus would do. He doesn't say I'm going to walk away. He goes, I'm with you forever. I will
Yeah,
never
that's right.
forsake you. I'll never walk away. I'll never give you up. I mean, the promise over and over. And there, we can never be more Christ-like than we walk toward somebody that doesn't deserve it, somebody who has offended us, or somebody that has made us so mad, you know, we and it's offering grace. And
Hmm.
grace is hard. Grace is really hard. God does a good job. I don't. Like
Right.
I want revenge. I want their car to wreck. I want a tree to fall on them. That's just, I mean, that's a normalcy, but God says no, move toward them. And I think when you do that, you let them know that they're valued. And that's why relationships sometimes become so tight with resolved conflict.
Well, and as you said that, I was thinking, I think teenagers can be some of the hardest ones to love because
Yeah.
it's a difficult stage because they're trying to find their way and they don't necessarily treat you very nicely when they're going through all that. And they're struggling to learn and grow and discover who they are and what they want to do in their life and all of that. But I know I've had my moments where it's like,
Yeah.
I really don't want to be nice to you right now because you
Yeah.
are so hateful and mean.
Yeah.
But and I do have good kids, but every teenager is going to act that way. Every teenager. I mean, I can't imagine one not going through that at some point in time unless they just keep it to themselves. But one thing that I did find as a mom that when especially with my son, because I think it's harder for me, like for moms, to talk to their sons than it is for their daughters. But I found out when I would be taking my son somewhere that that's where I could really talk to him
Yeah.
and get him to answer me and discuss things with me. But I mean, it's not easy to keep your kid talking when they're in that stage of life, and even older, even as an adult, sometimes it's hard to. He's 29 now, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's still hard to
Sure.
talk. So,
Sure.
how
Sure.
do you keep them talking and keep
Well,
that relationship?
yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I mean, guys, um, they communicate shoulder to shoulder. They
Mm-hmm.
don't communicate face to face, and so it's best to have an activity. Let's go shoot guns. Let's go ride horses. Let's go play pickleball. Let's go. I mean, whatever it is, you
Mm-hmm.
find something to do and you talk in the midst of it. Girls are a little bit different. I mean, they can sit down and talk face to face,
Yeah.
and most men are going, when is this going to be over? It's like I said to my wife a couple of weeks ago. She told me something, and I said, "Well, this is what I would do." She goes, "Hey, hey, hey! I didn't ask you to fix it. I just wanted you to listen to me."
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if we, I think somewhere if we just listen to what they're saying in some way, there was a young lady that I had a little confrontation with, and it got a little heated, and I mean, we were trying to help her get to a good point and all this, and in this crazy rainstorm that was going on, a frog choker in Texas, and I walked out because she walked out on me, and I walked out and it was pouring down rain, and I asked her, "What do you want? What do you want?" And I said it loudly, and I was trying to get through to her, and she goes, "I'll tell you what I want. I'll tell you what I want." And she said, "I want you to love me the most when
Mm,
I deserve it the least."
mm,
And it was almost like a light came on in me. And I thought, golly, what she just said is the gospel wrapped up in a little punk girl that was the most rebellious little snot that I've ever been around. And God just taught me an amazing lesson. Another friend of mine, his daughter called him, 29 years old, and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm getting married. I want you to give me away." And didn't tell him right off that she's marrying another woman. So
ah,
he really wrestled with that because I mean, where his background, where he comes from, what he believes, the intensity, he just wrestled with it. And he came and he said, "Can I come down and spend a couple of days with you and just help me talk through this thing?" He wrestled with it. I've never seen somebody wrestle through something like that. He went back to her and said, "Absolutely. I'll walk you down the aisle." So him and his wife did. But what he told her was, "I'm not going to let your choices destroy the relationship that I have with you
mm,
or determine the relationship." And I go, "What it means is I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm going to stick. There's nothing you can do. Nothing." And I think once we know that kids are struggling, instead of saying, man, I don't want that time. That's the time to say, "Why don't you and I go do something once a week? Go sit down and have coffee. Go sit down and have ice cream. Go at whatever age." That's the number one thing I tell people. Go spend time away from the normalcy.
mm,
Just ask questions. Quit giving answers. Quit sharing your opinions. Nobody wants your opinions. Are like armpits. Everybody has two of them and they both stink. I mean, don't even, I mean, don't just listen. Just open your ears and listen to the heart. And I say, don't share your opinions, but share your perspective. And the
mm.
perspective usually comes from looking at everything in life and saying, "This is what I think about this situation." You know, I mean, it's like talking politics with your kids. You want to divide up everybody? Talk politics. You want to have a lousy Thanksgiving? Start talking politics.
That's the truth.
It
Yeah.
is. And I go, why do we let one person, I don't care whether it's Biden or Trump or Obama or Bush or Clinton. I mean, why do we let one person determine all that? Why don't we look at the perspective that God's given us and say, "This is what I've seen through the years. And I've seen that God has allowed different people to be where they are in the positions they carry. And I may
Yeah.
not like it, but I believe in the democratic process. And that's how it is."
Mm,
Rather than being so critical of everything and sharing your opinion, share your perspective that offers wisdom to kids because they're not getting it from anywhere else.
no.
They get information, but they don't get wisdom. And I think moms, I want you to hear this. I think moms are probably the hardest ones to keep from talking all the time. And I say that because this is what happens, that moms start talking. Kids don't want information anymore because they've got a cell phone, they've got access to the Library of Congress. They're starving for wisdom. And so if they're not getting it, they will shut mom off.
Mm,
And everybody knows this. There isn't a man that I know that doesn't know this. That when I have a group of men together at a conference or whatever, I go, "Every one of you men understand this, that any one of your wives possesses more wisdom than all you men in this room put together." And so if your wife doesn't stop and allow wisdom to flow, then your kids are missing out on something that is so important that can change the destiny of your family. And I think if moms would understand that, it means that I'm going to shift the way that I engage with my child. once they become a teen. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start giving them what they want, not what I think they need. And so that means I don't lecture, I have discussion, I listen, I don't talk, I share, I don't just tell them things all the time. I don't make all their decisions. I want them to make decisions. I don't have
Mhm.
control. I let them have control. And it just means I'm going to move from a teaching model to a training model that's helping my child get to a good place in life. And when your child begins to feel like you're an ally rather than an enemy, then they embrace you and come to you rather than you always having to chase them.
Yeah, and build that trust between you and your kid because I think that's something that a lot of kids maybe don't trust their parents, that maybe they're not going to go and tell everybody what their kid's dealing with, or
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's really hard, I think, especially for boys, again, to share some of the things that they're struggling with.
Sure.
And
Sure.
they want to know that whatever it is, that's not going to be, broadcast to everybody, that, hey, this is what my son's dealing with right now, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it is kind of, I mean, it's difficult because they don't have relationships. They don't have deep relationships. When they get a little bit older, they do, of course, but they don't. And so they don't know what confidence or confidentiality is. They don't know what keeping secrets. They're afraid that somebody's going to tell somebody else.
hmm
That's where it's just, hey, let's sit down and talk here. I want you to know you can be open with me. You can talk. You can, I mean, anything you say. Well, yeah, mom, dad is such, guy, he's so angry all the time. This is where it's okay to say this. I know. I've
mm,
lived with him for 30 years. I've lived
yeah,
with him for how long? I know that. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't love you.
yeah,
Instead of, and the thinking has always been, no, we support each other, hand in glove. We never say anything. And I go, what you're doing is avoiding the truth sometimes.
mm,
And so by doing that, what you're doing is open, saying we can be open about those things and talk about it. And I think that's what kids are looking for. And the lack of judgment. This is what I did. Okay, okay. Well, let's look at why that is. I mean, it's kind of like whether it's social media, whether it's movies, whether it's video games for boys, whether it's porn, whatever it is. They're looking at a break from the normalcy of life, and they want a vacation. They can't take a vacation. You and I can, but they can't. They can't get away from it, and so that's why they smoke pot. That's why they do different things to go. I need some relief because, as I said, you and I have said we don't want to grow up in this culture, but they have to. And if they're not having relationships filled, where we usually get relief from stress, and somebody's stressed out, it's go talk to somebody.
hmm
Kids aren't. That's why we see depression, anxiety. We see kids isolating all the time. We see them in a fantasy world. We see them getting connected with things that and doing things to kind of take a break from life. That's why we see some of the activities they do, this adrenaline junkie thing. I mean, they're trying to create something or to get away from something. And that's where I go, it's because they don't have something else in their life. They don't have a relationship with somebody that will listen, will encourage them, will share wisdom, will offer them assistance to let them know I will never leave you. Whatever you tell me, I'll continue. And somebody says, well, God, mom and dad got to be on the same page. And I go, no, they don't. They need to be in the same chapter. They don't
right.
need to be on the same page. And I think I mean, that's where we miss it sometimes about what we think a relationship is, because my kids aren't going to agree with everything that I say. And I go, you know what? It's okay. They live in a
hmm
different world. They may not agree politically. They may not agree on abortion. They may not agree on politics. They may not agree on religion. They may, oh, okay, that's good. I want you to come to a place, but I want to be a source of wisdom for you. And let them be. I mean, you poured things into their heart all their life,
hmm
and now it's time to trust God with what He's promised that He'll bring it to completion. and all I am is a bystander that offers, what I've learned in life and what I can share with them. And I think that's what kids are looking for.
Yeah, and what that reminds me of something my husband always says is, well, he's owned his own company for 40 years, and he says you lead from behind
Yeah,
because you don't tell them this is what you do. You kind of, I hate to say manipulate, but it's like you manipulate them to think that way,
yeah, 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 yeah.
because you
Well,
have to,
it empowers people.
it
It makes
does.
them feel like, it makes them feel like they're making decisions, that they're in control, that somebody values, you know,
Right,
what they think and say. I mean, and so, I mean, it's the same way with our kids. I mean, when we do that with their kids, let them feel like they're doing it, that they're making a decision, that they're in control, that they're taking responsibility. They go, wow, that feels pretty good to have a relationship. Somebody values me because
right.
they're not feeling that from culture. And that's where it does come down. So anybody who says, well, how do these kids get in these rotten positions? How do they struggle and everything else? It's because maybe we're ignoring some things that they have in their life that they need desperately, and it's different from what we think they need. And that may be validation, it may be support, it may be encouragement, it may need wisdom, or maybe we're just not loving them the right way. I mean, you and I get this idea that there's only five love languages,
Yeah.
right? I think there's millions of love languages. But we think, well, it's, affirming words, acts of service, gifts. Um, I don't know what the other ones are. I'm trying to
Um,
think. Oh, time, quality time, and fun.
quality time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't want anybody to mow my yard. I don't want any gifts. Um, I really don't believe in affirming words because when you do public stuff, people are just as negative. I don't have any time to give anywhere, and I don't want you to touch me. And so those aren't my love languages. I have other love languages, and we all grew up believing, because I almost feel sometimes if you don't know the five love languages, then you're probably not a Christian, kind of thing. And I say that jokingly.
Yeah.
We all grew up with that, and so but our kids are loved differently now, and so it may be saying maybe I'm not loving him the right way. Maybe
Mm,
I don't, as scripture says, maybe I need to not lean on my own understanding. Maybe I need to think outside the box and say, how can I meet the needs, the unique needs of a unique child in a unique culture? How do I do that? And how do I do it differently? And it's not what I think, it's what they think. And I mean, it's almost like everything switches. It's been about them forever, or it's been about us forever. Now it's about them, to helping
mm.
them get through this crazy stage of adolescence.
And I think a lot of times, because, they're immature, that they don't know sometimes
Yeah,
what's important to them, and maybe if they sit down and really, really, maybe you help them think through that. I don't know. But I think we do need to ask good, thoughtful questions to them in a loving way that's not like, giving them the third degree or anything like that, but in a
yeah,
natural conversation. Just say, because one thing that I used to do with my kids when they were young, because I was blessed, I was able to work from home. So we always look forward to the summertime. And so I'd sit down
yeah,
with my kids and I'd say, all right, I want to know, what do y'all want to do? And even when they were teenagers, I'd say, what do y'all want to do this summer? Well, go to the museum or go to the park or the zoo or
yeah,
go
yeah, yeah,
somewhere with a friend or whatever. And I think when you start looking at, how they answer some of those questions, you kind of can start to see some of the things that are important to them because when you let them answer that, I think that gives you more insight into who they are.
yeah,
And but one thing that I did want to mention
sure.
was I heard you on an interview, and you were sharing about how some, I guess, a dad had asked you to come and observe his family, and I don't know if they were having issues or what the deal was, why they had asked you to come and observe the family. But one thing that I really stress for, I think, all families is the importance of the family table and
Yeah.
being able to communicate and something. But you found out at when you were at this house what they did or did not do at the family table that I was just kind of heartbroken over. So can you
Oh,
share
I
that
know,
story?
I know. This family had come and they just said, we're really struggling at home. Um, really struggling at home and not sure what to do or anything else. So so they said, can you come eat dinner with us? And I said, well, I'd love to. I was speaking at some event somewhere and I said, I'm in town. I can do that tonight. And so we did. And they had 3 or 4 kids and, God, they're great kids. And all of a sudden we sat down at the table. And I mean, it was just stone cold quiet. And it was everybody's just eating and that's it. And so I started, I'm not a jokester, but I love humor and I love saying things that I just love that. And that make people laugh or something. And the dad looked at me and said, hey, Mark, I want you to know we don't allow anybody to laugh at the table.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? Because I thought he was joking. I really thought, I mean, and I said, that's pretty much the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. And that did not go over well. And and so I mean, and I could tell he was serious. And so I just kind of sat there and I thought, okay, you got to be kidding me. No wonder these kids are so bound up. No wonder they're rebelling in a sense. Not rebelling. They're trying to have fun in life. No wonder they're making poor choices and all those things. And later we were sitting down in his office that he has. And I said, I want you to know something. I really mean that. You want me to come in here and observe you and you make that kind of comment because that's how you live. I go, you're going to destroy your family. Your
Hmm.
kids, when they turn 18, you'll never see them again.
That's
They'll go
right.
find another life somewhere. And I said, look, here's what you need to learn. You need to watch more comedians on YouTube. There's a lot of clean ones out there that you can find. You need to watch reels that are just funny as anything and have a family text and give those to each other. You need to spend some time laughing. You need to watch comedies,
Hmm.
rather than all these documentaries. Kids are bored out of their mind over to bring
Yes.
laughter into their world because they don't have it. And I said, this is what I've found. You can always throw a bigger brick if it's wrapped in humor. And
Mm.
I go, if you would learn to laugh, you would be healthier, your kids would love you, your wife would love you more, and you would just enjoy life because it doesn't look like you are.
No.
Anyway, he's written me, he's texted me, over the last 4 or 5 years. Hey, I'm trying. And so I'll send him something that's a joke. I'll send him something that's funny. And I go, you got to tell me that that's funny. And what am I doing? I'm laughing with him about
Right.
his inadequacies. And one of the first things he did afterwards, he went to his family and said, I've been wrong.
Mm.
I want you to know I've been wrong. I I don't know why, but my dad never let us do that. And so I'm wrong. And that is the first step toward redeeming a relationship with your kids is saying I'm right. You're never going to hear them say they're wrong until you say you're wrong.
Hmm.
And that's big. It's hard for a man to say that because men don't like to be wrong.
Right.
Am I right?
Neither do women. So.
I know. And I go, I mean, you just see that, and I think that's that lack of relationship and the lack of value. When you know you're valued, it doesn't matter whether you're wrong or not. It really
Hmm.
doesn't matter because it's not going to change anything. The fear of being wrong is when, if you admit it, it's going to change your relationship somewhere, and that's where it goes back to that. Hey, you you're not going to lose me. And I mean, it's telling your kids, go to them tonight and say this. I want you to know. I mean, knock on their door and open the door when they're in bed and just say, can I tell you something? Yeah, what? I want you to know that there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And just walk out. Don't tell them where they're wrong, how they need to do it different, how they need to do it better. Just do that. Now you're going to close the door and they're going to look at each other going, oh no, dad's drinking again, or something. But I go, because they're not used to hearing that, but they need to hear it. And it needs
Mm,
to be affirmed over and over and over again. I tell my 49-year-old daughter that. I tell my 44-year-old son, I'm with you. I'm here with you. I will always be with you until I age out,
mm,
it's just affirming the relationship.
yeah. So, as we kind of are wrapping up here, I want to talk about grandparents and the importance of grandparents in the lives of grandchildren because and I know it's difficult because some people they're not in the same town or the same city or maybe even the same country as their grandchildren. So, how can grandparents make a difference with their teens? Because again, it's I was saying before we got started, my grandson will be 4 next month,
Yeah,
and sometimes I feel like he's a middle schooler because he won't necessarily acknowledge me when I'm in the room or he doesn't want to hug me anymore. And I'm like, wow, he's only almost 4 and I'm already dealing with this. So, how do you deal with teenagers who might think grandparents are boring or old or whatever?
yeah. Well, you have to realize this. Most of them are.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Now, look, I think God is keeping us all alive because he knows this generation of kids needs wisdom. I,
Hmm.
I really do. I think there's a plan behind it. They need wisdom. They need to hear the stories. They need to hear all those things, but it's got to be about them. And if grandparents don't work hard at it, they're going to be pushed to the side. And they'll be pushed to the side because when they become 12 and 13, what happens is their social circles expand. And
Mm,
if you're not saying, let's go do this, let's spend time together, let's communicate, let's have opportunities somewhere. Now, medical issues come up and you can't do it. I get it.
right.
There's some things that you just can't do. And but there's other things you can do. If you've decided to, hop in the RV and drive away from your family and live in Florida and never come back and see them, then you don't deserve a relationship with them. I
Mm,
mean, you've got to work hard to keep it. And it's got to be
yeah.
you. It can't be them.
Right.
Well, they never call me. Well, they never call because they don't know you
That's
anymore.
right.
And I think that's where, I mean, and no grandparent that's in good health and of good mind has an excuse for not keeping up with kids because we can do that through text, through phone. I text my granddaughters every day. We
Mm,
go back and forth. We talk about country music, the country music awards, whatever it is. I mean, whatever they love, we're talking about it. And I
yeah.
and I think that's where grandparents have got to work hard. Grandparents are not a parent on steroids. They hold a very special place and can be used in a very special way and can offer their grandkids something that nobody else can give them. Now, I didn't know my grandparents. I mean, two of them were racist. One was in a nursing home, and the other one, I don't know where she was, and I don't think she did either.
Mm,
But I go, so I didn't know how to do this thing, but I do know how to keep relationships. And
yeah.
so do grandparents. Grandparents know that, and you just got to work hard at it, not thinking they're always going to come to you because kids are distracted. Uh,
Yeah.
and they're distracted.
Yeah, very much. And so dealing with adult children too, because I know
Yeah.
sometimes that can be difficult when it comes to grandchildren. So what advice do you have for that?
Well, I always support my kids, even when they're wrong. They're probably wrong all the time because I know what's right all the time. And that's what I feel sometimes. I feel like well, I know I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. You know what? That's none of my business.
Mm,
That's their business. I will support them. What I need to do is provide a place of rest, a place of hope, a place of wisdom, a place of comfort. There's no rules at my home when my grandkids come. We will do everything. I don't expect them to sit by the fireplace and go, "Oh, Papa, tell us more stories about when you swam at the University of Arkansas. We can't wait to hear that." I mean, they're not going to say that. They don't care about that.
mm,
I mean, and that was at a time when all of us wore speedos. Nobody wants to talk to somebody who wore
Or
Speedos.
envision that.
Oh, I know. They're going, ah, that's so sick. And so I think it's learning to engage. It's just saying, I want to be a part of your life,
Mm,
but you got to create the atmosphere for that to happen. And that atmosphere is by creating a safe place. I ask questions. It's like this. I was out to eat with a group of our folks who do radio and podcast, and one of our girls who's on the podcast with me, Courtney, she just out of the blue asked a question. She's good with these questions. I mean, she's excellent. She's a professional counselor. She's a young lady, and she just does well with questions. She looked at everybody at the table and she goes, "Hey, I got a question for everybody here. What's one thing that you would hope that no one would ever say about you?"
mm.
You know what? I think about that every day.
Wow.
It is and if you spend time asking those questions that create a wonderment, they will come back to you and you ask another question. Then you ask another question. And what you do if they ask, well, what do you think? What would be one thing? Then you give an answer. But it's not telling them what they need to think. It's not saying this is how you do it different. This is how you need to do it better. This is how you need to do it right. It's not saying those things. It is really giving them the opportunity to be drawn to you. And scripture says, even a fool appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut.
Yep.
Just be quiet. I would say, moms, do this. Go home, be quiet, and see
Mm,
what happens. And this is what you're going to find. Your kids will now move toward you and go, hey, mom, what's wrong?
mm.
Hey, mom, what's going on? Hey, mom. And the neat thing about that is they're coming to you rather than you always having to pursue them.
Yeah. That goes back to when, I would drive my kids around everywhere before they started driving, and I learned that if I just if I had a question or, topic or whatever, and I would say it, and it took everything in me not to keep talking,
Yeah,
but it was like, just wait. And if I waited long enough,
yeah,
they would like give me more information, tell me more about their day, some of the struggles that they were dealing with. But we have to learn to be quiet and listen.
yeah,
And I think that's the way to get to their heart, is to give them the room to feel comfortable to talk and share what their
yeah,
struggles are.
absolutely. It's interesting to me that I think we give answers a little bit too quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kids will ask me things. Hey, Mark, what do you think about this? I go, I don't know. I need to think about that. Because the minute you give them an answer, they don't reflect on it anymore and come to a
Yeah.
conclusion of their own. I mean, wisdom is gained by observation, reflection, and experience.
Mm.
And what you want them to do is to think about their own life and come up with the answer. And we give them answers so fast. They can find answers about anything,
Yeah.
anywhere. And I go, I want to ask questions that gets them thinking. And I want to give them an example too. I want to give them a living example. I don't think they need to go out and memorize scripture to solve all the problems in their life. It doesn't mean that scripture is not good. I mean, I've said that it doesn't mean they need more Bible study and everything else. Those are all good things and great things. But what they need is a connection so that they can
Yes.
see living examples, so they can get wisdom that could be based on scripture, it could be based on life itself, what I've seen, and the integration are, of both of those things, how they meet together. That's what they're looking for.
And I think too, especially, I mean, even my kids' generation, what they're looking for is authenticity.
Yeah,
And I don't know that we necessarily, as I mean, I'm 10 years younger than you, but like when I was growing up, I guess I really just kind of trusted and believed, whatever on, the news or TV or whatever. But nowadays,
yeah,
they know, it's like they have an extra sense about them, that
yeah,
if they know you're not being authentic, they don't want to have anything to do with you.
yeah,
So you can't just play the part.
yeah,
You have to actually really care about them and be authentic with your relationship with them.
yeah. I mean, I think it's giving up the idea of perfection.
Yes.
If you're walking around your house quoting Matthew 5:48 says, "Be ye perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect," you're destroying your kids.
Yes.
How you're going to connect is by sharing those things that you've struggled with. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people say, well, you've written books and you do this and you travel and you do this and you've done all that stuff. Yeah, that doesn't matter. I can't breathe out of the left side of my face for the way I was raised. My nose looks the way it does for a reason. My wife was sexually abused for
Mm.
7 years. My
Oh,
daughter wrestled with an eating disorder. My son had a drinking problem. He had an affair. Yeah, I mean, those are the things that connect us. It's not all the great things. It's those things when I am genuine and authentic, when I go, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I wrestle with that. No, I don't understand that. I mean, we get this idea that we have to understand everything. Yeah, the older I get, the more I realize I don't understand anything.
that's right.
I trust that God's involved. I know that. I know that everything that's come to us is first passed through the hands of God, and it's done so to help us become more Christ-like. I know that, but I don't understand it. I don't understand when people get shot. I don't understand when
Mm.
27 little girls drown at Camp
Yeah.
Stick in Guadalajara. I don't understand those things, but I don't have to understand. And I think what we rely on then, it's called faith.
Mm.
And I just believe it. And it's helping kids get to that point where it's not just based on having all the answers, which they're used to because they have access. It's not
Yeah.
all those things. It is learning that it's okay. This is what faith is about. Even when I don't understand it, I can still embrace who God is and what he's doing in my life. I don't I quite honestly have never understood what God's doing in my life. It's
Mm.
always been kind of weird to me. But it's worked. And his plan's been pretty good. And he
Yeah.
never shared it with me because I'm pretty much convinced that I would have screwed it up somewhere along the way. And so I go, so I'm content. And I think that's just living life with his guidance and direction and not thinking about all the time about what I want,
Mm.
but it's more about what other people want and what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a good place to end it on because
Mm.
without faith, what do we have? We don't have anything. So,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
but can you share just a few things like how the listener can find you? And I know you said you have resources available for parents and grandparents. And can you
Yeah.
share all of that?
Yeah, real quick. I mean, you can go to parentingtodaysteens.org. It's the name of the radio program, name of the podcast, but it's a resource site and you can find just about everything there from speaking deals to podcast to radio to books to articles. I mean, thousands of articles and
Mm,
hundreds of radio programs and hundreds of podcasts. I mean, you can find stuff there. And if you want to buy a book, buy it. And if you don't want to buy it, just let me know and I'll send it to you because I
mm,
want you to have the resources you need. Now, to find out about Heartlight, the the ministry that we have where we live with the kids and we're located in Longview, Texas, go to heartlightministries.org. If you're struggling with your child, they're out of control, you feel like you're going to lose them or they're not going to be around, 6 months from now, then
mm,
you need to do something. And I would, you need to save their life. And it may be that they need to come to a place where they can get the help that they really need. So just look at heartlightministries.org. So either one of those two, you can find out, or just type in Mark Gregston, and you'll find out something about us.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I appreciate all the work you've done. You said you've been in ministry 50 years now, and
Crazy.
that's that's a lot of teens that you've influenced, and I'm sure parents and families and then the children of those teens.
Yeah.
So that is an amazing testimony of how you have just followed God's will and been obedient to Him. So I
I do.
admire you for that because again, living with 60 teens is not an easy thing to do. So,
Well, if you're ever in East Texas, come see us. I mean,
okay.
I'm welcome because I'd want to introduce you to the kids and
Yeah.
see what we do. But I mean, kids say it all. And if people want to see our kids, they can get on YouTube and go to Heartlight Stories, and they can see our kids, and it's me interviewing them and giving them the opportunity to share their story.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm glad you shared that because I'll go and check that out. And that, I don't, maybe that would even be something that might impact their own children, if they
Yeah.
saw an interview with a kid that, maybe might impact their own child. So
And
thank
we
you
interview
for
kids
sharing.
in the podcast radio. The highlight of all of it is when we interview kids.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's on every program, everything we do, we interview them, and it works. But Carol, thanks so much for having me. This has been quite a joy, and really, I say that if you're ever in East Texas, we'd love to have you come by for a cup of coffee and see what we do and be a part of it. Talk to our staff. We'd love to have you.
that would be great. Well, if I ever make it that way again, I went last January. I went to Waco last January. First
Yeah,
time I've ever been to Texas. I don't know how close you are to Waco.
4 hours. We're 162 miles. That's where both my kids went to school.
Okay.
So
Texas is a big state. So,
it is. It's huge. It's
yeah.
huge.
But if I ever get that way again, yeah, I'll let you know.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.